Someone asked me how I've managed to be so productive sewing. If you look at my sewing blog, I posted about 10 projects a month last year, which I admit was a little excessive. But yes, I can be very productive sewing, but I think my answers to how aren't really going to be helpful for most people, because a big part of the how is I don't have a job outside the home, so I just have a lot more time to sew. And another thing is I have been sewing seriously for about 30 years now, which when you've been doing something that long, you kind of figure out all the shortcuts and just get used to everything that you can't shortcut, and just the fact that I've been sewing for so long means that I can be fairly quick when I sew. And the third thing is that not everyone necessarily has, is that I have my own sewing and craft space. It's this room. So for whatever it's worth, I went ahead and offered to do a room tour. So let's do that. So it is a dedicated room. It's not a particularly big room. It's about 10 by 10 or 3 meters by 3 meters. And I have things crammed in here. If the lens on my video camera were wide angle, you would see that I have stuff everywhere. So I will try to convey how crowded this room is as I make the video, but I don't know if that will come through. So there's the door, which is closed right now to keep me from having my voice stripped out in the rest of the house and my kid thinking I'm talking to him. The closet is where I store most of my fabric. And yes, I currently have a mirror in there. It was over there where the decorative mirror is that you saw in the previous clip, but I decided I'd rather have the decorative mirror there. I do use this mirror for sewing. I hold up fabric in front of it to see how things might look as a particular garment, or I'll try on during construction to see how things fit, and having a full-length mirror does help. It would help more if it were actually on the wall somewhere, but I have a mirror. So my fabric, I'll get to this later if I have to move it now. This is the least fabric I've had for a long time, because a few months ago I decided I was going to clear out everything from the house I possibly could to donate to the craft thrift reuse store in Nashville. It's called Smart Supply. I have a friend who lives just a few miles away, and we go every few months, usually because the friend is in search of something, and I will find an excuse to dig out more things to donate. And last time we went, I turned the whole house upside down looking for things to donate, and I did get rid of a lot of cloth, because knowing that it's going to some place where people are going to look for cloth helps me feel less weird about letting it go. So what I have left is a lot more attuned to my taste. I don't know if you can see, there's a lot of pinks. Not as many purples, because most of my fabric is secondhand, and it's just harder to find purple secondhand, although I can. And I'm also, again, since I was so productive last year, getting better at actually using things. So I have this with my fabric that I'm going to try to use, even though I know I probably will not make a dent in it, even if I sew another year of stupendous productivity. And I know I'm rambling. So up there is scraps that I probably should either find someplace to donate to. The craft thrift reuse store won't take little scraps, but my brain's like, I know that you could make a quilt with these easily, so I need to find an organization will take those. This is my box of scraps that I'm keeping for me because of the colors and textures and prints. I have actually made many things out of just the contents of this box, and of course I'm constantly replenishing it, so I don't need all that stuff. This is leather, and then I have a lot of quilt tops I've made, patchwork things I made that someday I might actually turn into proper quilts. Because down here I have batting that I bought so I can make proper quilts. But again, I have not yet done that. Buried in the corner under this stuff is backdrops for doll photos. I used to have them out, and just seeing them crammed between the dresser and the wall, just seeing them sitting out there. I will never be a minimalist, but clutter gets to me. So all of those doll backdrops just sitting over there cluttered, and I had to figure out something to do with them to just make me feel better overall. So into the closet they go. I do use them less, but if I ever make the quilts, then they'll be easier to get to and maybe I'll use them more. Everything's connected, right? Right. So one of the things when I recently did the overhaul donating everything is I grabbed some gift wrap that is not very good because it's white background so you can see right through it, and I've been using this to trace off patterns, which I'm trying to get better about doing. Trying. There's interfacing, there's lining, fancier fabric that I have on rolls, and then vaguely organized by content and size and construction is my fabric. So that's what's in the closet. And on the closet door is this cat hanger that whenever I take a picture of a finished project, I generally hang it from the cat hanger, and I just know there are people who like the cat hanger, so I am focusing on the cat hanger here. I thrifted it, but if you look up metal cat door hanger, I think you can still find them fairly easily online. And also, while I'm moving the camera around in weird directions, this is the light in the room here. I had decided that I wanted a better light than the stock boob light that the room had. Not just because of aesthetics, but also because it just didn't produce a lot of light in here, even though the window is south facing, so in the summer it gets a ton of light, and during the day in the winter it gets a lot of light, but there are times when this room can still be a little dim. So I wanted to put a fancier light up. Of course, actual fancy lights are expensive. I managed to thrift this one. It did have to be rewired, which was not fun. And then I also found these 3 glass shades in a thrift store. Because this lamp actually originally had this big just shade over the top of it, and it was odd and weird and an electrical hazard. So I'm very happy that it has been salvaged and rewired, and it is very bright. I have 3 60-watt equivalent daylight bulbs in here. This room lights up like a lab when that light is on, which is as little as possible because I am a creature of ambient lighting, but sometimes overhead lighting I will accept. Then here is my absolutely ridiculous work surface. It is a large piece of cardboard that I've covered with contact paper on top of my ironing board. I would love to have a standing height table proper to work at, but there is just no room in this room for a standing height table that can never be moved. So I have rigged up this ironing board with cardboard to be my standing height table, and I use it constantly. When I cut fabric out especially, I do not like getting on the floor to cut out fabric. Yes, it is more of a challenge sometimes to cut things out on this because I have to fold it, this width. On the other hand, that means I'm generally cutting out one pattern piece at a time, and that actually generally leads to more efficient pattern cutting and fabric usage than if you fold the whole fabric in half and cut everything out at once. So I am pretty reliably able to squeeze projects out of less fabric than it calls for, with pattern matching, sometimes. So this is, yes, it's always in the way. I don't put it down too often, but it is an ironing board, so it can be put away, and I put it behind the door. And I am, in general, very happy that I figured out putting this big piece of cardboard on an ironing board to give me a standing height work surface, because standing height work surfaces are nice. So I can easily move this. And then over here, I keep small yardage fabric in this. Some of it is leftovers from projects. Most of it is doll appropriate fabric. So it all goes in here in no particular order, just organized vaguely. Like I have cottons up here, plain cottons, heavier cottons, and holiday cottons, which holiday cottons means Halloween here, and then there's fancier fabrics, and then there's knits. And I also got rid of a lot of this stuff when I did the craft thrift store donation purge recently, because it was getting real crowded. And I try to keep things so that when storage gets crowded, I don't add more storage. I get the stuff out of storage. And that helps, again, keep me from getting overwhelmed by too much clutter. I'm not saying I don't do clutter, but there's a tipping point on clutter. And the camera's crooked, isn't it? I thought I had it leveled. Oh well, sorry about the vertigo. Sewing area. I've had to close the blinds because the backlight was just washing out everything. And yes, my enormously bright cobweb covered light on the ceiling is on. So yeah, my sewing, a few years ago I decided that the computer desk I was using was just aesthetically unacceptable. So I managed to thrift this table, which is pretty old. It has one of the earliest patterns of laminate formica on the top. My sewing machine, which is a 1980s Nehi, not the top end of sewing machine, not the bottom end of sewing machine. It has served me well. I'm very happy that I managed to thrift it. My serger that I have had since it was a high school graduation gift, so I've had it over 30 years. It has also served me well. It is very yellow, and I put new stickers on it every once in a while because they get very faded, and it is dusty. But my serger, something I almost passed by at the thrift store, and yes, with the light on, I'm seeing how everything is so dusty that I don't really notice normally. Sorry. I saw this in the thrift store, thought, wow, that is adorable. It is purple, and it has bees on it, and I thought, I don't need it, but then I realized I could put all of my sewing machine feet in it. So that is what I keep here on the desk, and I'm constantly getting into it to change out my various sewing machine presser feet, because I do love sewing gadgets, and every specialized presser foot is a sewing gadget. I have a whole bunch of scissors here. Only this pair actually cuts fabric. All the rest of them I use for pattern weights. I don't like to pin fabric. Once I start using pattern weights, it's like, wow, these are amazing. It's so much faster. So that also helps me be a little more efficient with sewing. I do have some proper pattern weights I made of resin, and I'm going to make more, but I actually use the scissors more often than not. My dedicated light, yes, the sewing machine does have a light, which actually is an LED bulb, so that's nice and bright, but it's just super bright when I turn on the reading lamp, which also has a very bright LED bulb in it. Thrifted Caboodles box, bobbins and needles, and chalk and screwdrivers and tape measures, and all the little things that you need when you're sewing. I think this is in frame, yes. This was a kind of, not exactly impulsive purchase. I've been thinking about getting one for a while, but I did. It was an impulse to convince myself to go ahead and get it, and I'm seeing the dust. It is an eyelet setter, grommet setter, and I also have the die so I can set snaps with it. And it's one of those things I don't use a lot, but It is so much easier to use than trying to hammer things together with the normal DIY kind of Joanne fabric level of eyelet setters and snap setters that I really like it. Here is the trunk that I keep all the doll clothes in. If you've seen my dressing doll videos, then you've seen the contents of this, and now maybe you have a little more idea where it is in the room. Under it are more boxes where I keep my resin supplies, and then a box of different kinds of zippers and threads for the serger. I keep my sewing machine threads on the wall. And then all the cookie containers and chocolate containers and mooncake containers and candy containers that I have more sewing supplies in, because that's what you keep sewing supplies in, right? Another beloved sewing gadget. I have never had a sewing machine with a good buttonhole maker, so I go the vintage route and use this old attachment for putting buttonholes in, and it has never disappointed me. It has frustrated me, but it hasn't disappointed me. And then you get to the boxes. These big boxes are what I keep doll stuff, well, not doll stuff, dolls in. I have some dolls in here and craft things in here. This is the really big dolls. You see probably an American Girl sticking out on top, and then there's a Sasha, and there's a Disney animator doll in there, and a few other kind of big dolls. These are the tall dolls like Ken and Jem. And then can you see some dolls that I actually have on display? Some plants. I do have a lot of plants in this room. More dolls. Buttons, sequins, glitter, doll hair. And there's books down there and more craft supplies. More craft supplies and paper products, and a box of doll projects in progress. Another box of dolls, another box of dolls, another box of dolls, more mostly craft books, more display dolls, another box of dolls, some boxes of doll supplies, and my box of doll bodies. The box of doll heads is in the steamer trunk with the doll clothes. My computer is here. My chair squeaks. My computer is crowded. Actually, I used to have my computer with the monitor attached to the wall, but the glare off of that window was so horrible that last year I said, I have to do something about this. So we turned the computer desk 90 degrees, but then if my monitor had gone flat on the desk, there would have been no room for my scanner. And also, I just had gotten so used to having the monitor right in front of me at eye level that I didn't want it on the desk, so we rigged up this. So this is where I spend most of my day. As much as I sew, I am on the computer more, for better or for worse. Yeah, this is the last part of the room, the last feature of the room. See, the monitor is here, the computer desk is here, 90 degrees from the wall, sticking out. There's like 4 feet between the sewing table and the desk, and I have bounced off the corner of this raised shelf on the desk a few times and given myself nasty bruises because I am clumsy. But the last part of the room is the file cabinet. That is where I keep my sewing patterns. I do keep other things, like all my scrap interfacing is here, and my stabilizer for embroidery, my mini iron, my ham, my Taylor's ham, this kind of ham, and another beloved sewing gadget, which is this. I'm nowhere near paid to promote Dritz Easy Hem. I just love this. I love it so much that paint has worn off the bottom, but instead of using a traditional hem gauge to press up hems or the edges of things, you just line up the edge. You wrap it around the bottom of this, you line up the edge, and you iron straight on it because it is metal. So that might be another thing that helps me be more efficient. I don't know, but I like it. And then I have 2.5 drawers of patterns. Like there's more odds and ends of things in one of these drawers. And that's my room. I don't know if this was helpful. I don't know if you want me to talk about anything more specific. Like, I could probably ramble at length about my sewing gadgets, but I don't know if you want to hear that. So, I don't know if this video was helpful, but I said I'd do it, and I did.